call. I know it's the day after a long weekend, which is not the easiest day in terms of program operation. And we also have the competing board meeting at the same time. So I'm honored that you chose to come to this meeting. But we have a lot to cover today. And I wanted to start by introducing some of our EEC team members. First, I'd like to introduce Diana Phillips and Caitlin Molina. Caitlin Molina is our new Deputy Commissioner for Licensing Operations. Diana Phillips is a former regional director, so she knows the work well, and now she's the Senior Associate Commissioner for Licensing Operations. We also have Loretta Prendeville. She's our Coordinated Family and Community Engagement Specialist. Josiane Daly, who is our Funded Program Monitor. Some of you may already have been working with Josiane. Sarah Hawes, who is our GSA Supervisor. I'm sure many of you know who Sarah is already. And then we have a number of our licensors on the call as well. Anne-Marie Castro, Daryl Ann Lewis-Ruza, Marinelli Sanchez, Cheryl McClellan. Did I miss anybody? No. Great. Oh, and Aaron Kraft, who is a regional director from Region 1, is going to join us and just sit in on our call today. So we'll get started and we'll talk a little bit about all the things that you came to hear about today. So today we're going to focus on sharing the most up-to-date information on EEC. There's a lot going on, and I know you've had a lot coming at you. We're going to talk about continued PPE. We're going to talk about COVID testing, the stabilization grants, and changes coming soon to support programs. And we know that everybody is really doing their best to get programs up to speed again, back to full capacity, and we know that's been pretty challenging. Most importantly, we want to collect questions so that we can make sure all of our communications and technical assistance that comes out to the field in the next couple of months is responsive to the challenges you're experiencing and the questions that you have. So to begin with, I wanted to talk about our EEC family forums. We held a series of family forums in August to really tap into parents and help understand what they were experiencing and what their challenges were. So specifically in our region, we heard, of course, that affordability is the most pressing concern for families, and we know that to be the case in our region. Also heard that our region is the workforce shortage is contributing to reduction in program hours, and families are finding that to be a little bit challenging in terms of needing to go back to work. Programs are not open for the full 10 hours, sometimes 11 hours. There's also a need for more infant toddler, always a need for more infant toddler care, and also the need for more vouchers. So more subsidy funding to support families. So the other issue is special needs care. I know that lots of families are looking for that program that provides that additional level of support for children who have diagnosed special needs, and that can be very, very challenging for young families. So the other things we're going to cover today are the EPA Stabilization Grant, ongoing EEC supports, changes in the workforce policy and operations. I think you'll be really happy to see some of our proposals in this area. Other workforce supports, such as the registry and higher ed access. Then we're going to spend some time collecting your questions and comments, and then we'll give you a quality update. Okay. Great. So ARPA stabilization grants in Metro Boston. So EEC has, ARPA is the American Rescue, I don't know, what's the P in ARPA?
Plan Act.
Plan Act, okay. Thanks, Eli. And those were federal funds that came to support the field, and EEC has been using those Stabilization Grants to support program operations for up to 6 months from July until December. And all licensed childcare programs are eligible. And I know that hasn't always been the case depending on the funding stream, but in this case, all licensed programs are eligible, and funding is based on license capacity with an adjustment based on equity goals. So there is a lot of information about how that formula was derived. There was a lot of input that went into developing that formula. And so I think if you have questions about that, I think it's important that you follow the link that's listed here and look for the information. The good news is Massachusetts was just one of just 14 states that was able to get the grants out before September, which is pretty extraordinary. And ours began in July, which is really put us ahead of the pack. So if there are additional questions you have, there is a dedicated support team working on answering these questions. But it's really great to note that in our region, 78% of family child care and 48% of group and school age programs have already received grants, which is statewide. 5,000 programs have submitted, which is 72% of all eligible programs, and 65% of applicants are from subsidized programs. So hopefully those resources are flowing to your programs and are really helping you to rebuild capacity after a very challenging year and a half. And grants applications are still being accepted. I know that for many of the, especially OST programs, access to public school buildings was a challenge. So a lot of out of school time programs have had a challenging time ramping up capacity again. So if you haven't opened yet, but you plan to open, you can actually apply in advance for the month you will open. But I ask you to just let your licensor know what the reopening date is. And the licensor will make the adjustment in LEAD that will show what your projected reopening date is. And again, if you have specific questions about the grant, there's a special help desk set up just for the grant, and you can reach it by email or you can make a phone call to that. And Eli has also put that link in the chat if you'd like to look at that. The good thing is that I think the construction of this grant process has been very comprehensive and very thoughtful. On this website, there's an overview of the funding. There are recordings of information sessions. So if you haven't seen it before, you can go back and review it at any time that works for you. There are FAQs. There's a link to the application. There are user guides in multiple languages. And this, I think, is a really great asset and a really good resource. There's some sample grant applications, and there's a formula calculator so that you can make a determination about funding that might be available to your program through the grant. And there are other supports also going to continue, at least through the end of this calendar year. PPE will continue to be delivered right to your door, and those applications are accessed in LEAD. And hopefully that's going well for your programs, for folks who have accessed that resource. There's pooled testing program for programs to take advantage of. And again, we have the rapid response COVID testing sites throughout the state that are both for childcare staff and participating families. Any and all supports will remain in place through the end of this calendar year. Also subsidy policies. Modifications to our subsidy policies will remain in place through December. And this includes no limit on absences, extended job search timeframes, waived parent fees, and others. So if you want to look at our subsidy policies, you can get a better idea of all of those changes that will remain in effect for the time being. Now here's the biggest project that we wanted to share with you today. And this is in response to what we're hearing, what the commissioner has been hearing about the workforce crisis, especially in group and school age programs. We've gone back to the drawing board to look for ways that we could streamline hiring. Because we've heard from so many programs how hard it's been to hire staff during this time. And if you think about it, there were so many programs that were closed for an extended period of time and everybody's opening again at the same time. So you didn't have the advantage of that continuity of operations. You're all sort of staffing up from a very limited pool to begin with. And so Sarah and I have been working closely with programs and want to continue to support you in this. But there are some other policy matters that we think can help support your efforts too. So we've been working to find as many fixes as possible in educator policies and operations. As you may know, the current process for a TQ certificate to EEC can require a lot of paperwork and take some time, and it can be, frankly, a very confusing process. That's why we've created an interim process modification to help you hire staff more quickly. There's nothing worse than you think you've got somebody who will be great, but it takes weeks and weeks and weeks for them to get qualified, and you wind up losing them to somebody else. So what we're trying to do is really shorten that timeline to allow you to effectively hire and onboard staff. So the big modification is that programs are now going to review and verify qualifications as opposed to EEC staff. So at the time of hire, and they'll maintain the education qualifications as part of the staff record. So that's a big shift for all of you. But licensors are going to do their best to support you in this process when they're out in the field. But we believe that you'll have the resources to make this shift. So this is our current state. You'll see that there are narrow definitions, restrictions to reciprocity. That means that a K-3 teacher working in a kindergarten classroom didn't qualify for an EEC lead teacher. And so we've been really looking at other ways that people can gain experience and trying to provide additional reciprocity or consideration for experience working in other settings. The programs of study have been limited, and there's been a lot of difficulty with transferability, especially from out-of-state courses or degrees. And in our region, you know, is very international, and that can sometimes be a barrier too. So the goals for the new policy are to remove barriers that create delays and stand in the way of programs hiring new staff. We want to maintain qualification standards, but offer some time to reach them so programs can hire people quickly and educators can succeed in the long term. So you might have somebody who's coming in, you know that they need an additional course. We want you to be able to hire them and then put those additional resources into place in a defined period of time. So we're going to give you time to come into compliance and also add flexibility in how qualifications are achieved and how they're verified. So ultimately, program leaders, who include program directors, are the experts in what children in their care need the most. So more flexibility means you have the ability to hire more quickly the people that you need. There also will be TQ office hours for answering all questions that arise through these changes, and policies and protocols will be published and shared. You know, Sarah and I have been working with so many programs and hearing kind of what your challenges have been. And I think that you have been very, very creative and provided a lot of insight to us, and we've shared that with the team. So I think that you're already doing this very thoughtfully and very effectively. And so we want to give you more tools and resources to do that. Now, looking ahead, the next year for workforce supports, I think, is how do educators find a course? Say you have somebody who's a preschool teacher and you need an infant toddler teacher and you need that infant toddler curriculum course, or you need somebody who needs to be director certified and you need those additional courses. This is a really exciting new initiative. It's the Higher Education Access EEC Professional Pathways. This is going to be managed by neighborhood villages. And after November 1st, if a program or educator goes to this website, they can get help finding a specific coursework, or they'll be able to see kind of a pathway to help them advance their career in early education and care. So stay tuned as a Professional Pathways website is launched and the work begins. This will be a big shift as well. So this is looking ahead, this is the professional registry. And I think if you've watched the commissioner's announcements or engagements, she's been talking about this for some time now. And this is a one-stop shop for educators to put everything related. Right now, educators have to interface with the BRC system, the TQ system, the PQ system, and licensing. And what we've heard loud and clear is that educators want a single point of entry to help access all of these EEC resources. So this will be like a hub for educators, and then we'll link them with the programs that employ them. So it's going to reduce a lot of redundant work and really kind of give educators, when they're coming in the door, everything they need for you to hire them. The registry can follow an educator throughout her career from role to role. Another amazing benefit is going to give us a lot of information and data about who our workforce is, what their trajectory has been. And so I think it'll be a really great asset. It should reduce delays in recruitment and hiring. And for family child care, processes will be adapted specifically based on the needs of the environment that they're working on. So EEC held a number of engagement sessions about the professional registry already. So if you haven't seen them yet, they're recorded, and you can view workforce effort engagement registry recording to find out more about the professional registry. It's all going to be based in LEAD, which should be great because everybody's familiar now with the LEAD portal. So I think it'll be very user friendly. And I think you're going to find it to be a really great asset. And EEC, there are other ways to stay connected and stay engaged. I appreciate, as I said, that you came to our meeting instead of the board meeting, but the board meeting is going on. And if you missed the board meeting because it's been a busy day, you can always go back and watch the recordings of the board meeting. That's, I think, frankly, been a silver lining in COVID, is having access to all of this information and all of these presentations and meetings. You don't have to pay $1,000 in parking to park in Boston, and you can see it right from the comfort of your desk. So board dates, materials, broadcasts are found online. And if you just follow that link, you'll be able to see past recordings. So you can see the board's been very, very active, very supportive, and engaged in all of this work that we've been doing. So please don't stop sharing your thoughts. We're grateful for everything you've shared. It's been really helpful to all of the teams who've worked on the initiatives you've heard about. And there are so many ways to learn and share more. So we really want to hear from you. I hope that you'll attend board meetings, step up and provide public comment when you have important things to say, and register for engagement and provide survey and live feedback on these topics. I really want to give a shout out to Eli Cole and Ola Folletti from Aim and Arrow, who have done, I really think, such an extraordinary job on this strategic engagement and have really helped us build some great muscles around this. And don't anybody ever think that the information you're sharing doesn't get sort of rolled into our thinking and planning around the new policies. So, but the other thing I want to tell you is that Sarah Hawes and I and your licensors are here. So if you've got a program specific concern or a question, we're happy to meet with you to problem solve and strategize about how you might be able to make your specific program work. And we'll do our best to help you think through what you're trying to do. And we really want to hear from you. So one of the questions that came up is, when does the educator qualification policy start? And I think that it will be published sometime in the next couple of weeks. Caitlin, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. So I think we don't actually have a go live date, but we've been working really collaboratively with our external and internal partners to make sure that the policy can be released in a manner that is both supportive, but also instructive to programs. So we also know, we've heard pretty loudly from programs, that there is a sense of urgency around creating these flexibilities and alternative pathways. So we are balancing that sense of urgency with also wanting to make sure we have the resources and materials in place and on our website to support navigation and implementation. So I would imagine within the next 2 weeks, we will have an update related to the educator qualifications policy. And then over the next few weeks and months, we'll be working directly with programs to support implementation.
Excellent, thank you. So now it's time for your questions. So with the upcoming changes, we know there's going to be a lot of questions, and imagine that some of you came to this meeting with questions. We want to use this session to collect your questions, and this will help us make sure that all of the communications that are forthcoming about the new policies that are rolling out fully address your concerns and questions. This won't be the last chance to submit your questions, just one in a series. So now I'm going to turn over to the Aim and Arrow team to help us get connected to Poll Everywhere.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. So on your screen, there are a couple of ways to connect in. And for those of you who've not participated in sessions before, Poll Everywhere is the software that we use. It helps us collect your questions in a way that's, first of all, transparent, because they all show up right on the screen as you're responding, but also allows us to hear from many people at the same time, because we're not pausing to unmute and kind of take turns. Everyone can kind of chime in at once, and EEC is able to collect a larger breadth of responses and thoughts from groups on calls like this. So that's how Poll Everywhere serves purposes for us in terms of collecting a lot of information at the same time and ensuring that that is a transparent method. But that requires all of you to get connected. And so there are 2 ways to do that. The first is, if you're using a mobile phone, you can text. If you text to the number 22333, and in the little text writing area, just put early education, all one word. Then that gets you automatically connected to the poll. You should see your first question pop up. You can go ahead and start responding. Or if you want to connect online, I've put the link in the chat, or you can type it in using the display here, but you're essentially going to pollev.com/early education. That will also bring up the first question, and you can go ahead and start responding. The structure is that, as Kelly has beautifully sort of set expectations, the whole hope today is that we collect questions rather than answer them, because there are changes coming with a lot of technical assistance and communications around them. And so the goal is to make sure that there is a really strong understanding of all of the questions that are out there about these changes, so that the design of all of those technical assistance and communications materials and sessions is able to respond appropriately to the full range of concerns or questions that may be facing folks. So that is what we hope to accomplish with the Poll Everywhere. And we will be going in order through some of the things that Kelly has walked through. So asking first about the educator qualifications changes, then about the neighborhood villages work, then about the professional registry. So we'll ask about each of those in turn to understand your questions so that they can be incorporated into plans. Does that sound good?
And Eli, are people going to be able to see some of the questions and responses as they come in?
So there won't be responses today, but we will
Right.
display the questions. Yes,
Great.
I mean our questions. Our questions.
No, no,
Their questions, right?
yes.
Totally.
Great.
Yes, those will be on display as soon as everyone's gotten connected. Then we'll go ahead and switch so that you can see all of the responses as they're coming in.
Great.
Yes. And staff members who are here, please feel free to also connect in and provide questions that might occur to you. So, so we certainly don't need to limit the responses. We'd love to hear from everybody. So I'm going to wait and keep this up for a moment while everyone gets connected. And let me know over chat. If you chat to the host and co-hosts, I'll be able to see. If you're having any trouble getting connected, just flag it in the chat and we'll help you out. Okay, I'm going to switch over now to look at the questions as they come in. And so the first question, Kelly, if you would like to go ahead and walk through the questions. And
Sure.
Okay, great.
So when you think about upcoming changes in educator qualification, what questions should we be sure to answer in our technical assistance? It's a great question. We need clear classifying and qualifying CEUs, options for required coursework. We did talk about that as the Neighborhood Villages portal, and I think that'll be a great asset and resource.
These are great questions.
Mm-hmm.
To make sure that these are very clear in policy. Any others before we move to the next question? Oh, here we go.
It's a really great question because I know that original documents, college diplomas, and transcripts are required by TQ currently. So that's a great question.
Okay. So just to, I have some private chat questions about the structure. So I just want to make sure that the structure is really clear. This question is about some of those changes in policy and operations around educator qualifications to support recruitment and hiring in group and school age programs. The next question will be about neighborhood villages, and the next one will be about professional registry. And the goal today is that we collect all of your questions so that future sessions and communications can respond to them. We may not have responses right now. So that's the hope of what we would love to see from you in responses to these questions. Great.
Great question. Ease of use.
And clarity about which staff it will pertain to. It's perfect. New or existing moves.
It's definitely not our intent to invalidate any current certification. So there are a number of your staff who are already certified. So this process is really about kind of really trying to widen the pool of eligible candidates so we can bring new people into the field. We know how important that is.
I'm seeing phone call responses. I wonder if like maybe some additional clarity around some of those things would help us and know what questions to build in as responses and communications. Okay. So I'll move to the next question, Kelly, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Eli. So as we think about neighborhood villages and access to higher ed, what questions do you anticipate having?
So as programs, if you were able to turn to one central source to say, I've collected a group of candidates who need human or child growth and development, for example, what would you want to know in order to figure out whether that's a fit for what you're looking for, to understand the steps that would be required, or how you can best plug into that opportunity? Or if you have a candidate that you're considering who needs additional coursework, for example, what questions might you have about what Neighborhood Villages is building that would help you make the most of that opportunity? Great. So are there available courses that are relevant for school age in addition to early childhood? Go ahead, Kelly.
No, I think that's fantastic. Neighborhood Villages is a partner organization that we've been working with, who's been doing some of this work in our region to begin with, setting up cohorts for coursework that is inclusive of all the supports that staff need to be able to successfully attend those.
Great. And it is a nonprofit. It sounds like the website having frequency of the courses would be helpful, and where there are scholarships available, really great. I think these things will directly inform how Neighborhood Villages builds the website for this support.
Yeah, online, in person, and hybrid. Again, we've all sort of built some muscle around online coursework, but we know that teachers are busy working all day and really need some flexible options. So absolutely.
Okay. Any last questions before we move to the next? That you want to make sure that we answer as we communicate about this opportunity for professional pathways? Oh, great. Cost. Very good. Okay, I'll move to the next question.
Thanks. Now, as we think about rolling out a professional registry or a one-stop shop for educator records, what questions should we be sure to answer in communications and technical assistance? This is going to be a big lift, right, for educators. So you're all expert in lead. They're going to learn to be expert in lead.
Maybe Kelly, reassuring again, there will be a lot of communications and technical assistance coming out.
Absolutely. And I think that, again, the platform is intended to be kind of a single repository, right, for all of the information that educators are already sharing in a multitude of systems. So this is going to be kind of a single point of entry. It'll be a much more user-friendly than TQ or PQ, which is a very old program. So
it looks like the technical assistance and communications need to answer questions like who can access the educator accounts. So questions of access. So all
these are some great questions. Yeah.
The types of records that are built in, whether, in initial phases or over time. Whether it replaces the staff files kept on site.
That's an excellent question too.
This is so helpful. The teams are designing some of these communications and training right now, so these will help a lot. I love that. Alerts and reminders for tasks. Kind of nudging, if you will, gentle nudging. So confidentiality around HIPAA documents or other, if they're held at the site or in the registry. It's a great question. I see so many questions about kind of access and who can view what and where those lines are.
Mhm.
That'll be important to answer.
Transferability.
Mhm.
Yes, that's a big goal of this whole project, is so people don't have to recreate the wheel every time they change. We know that there are a lot of movement between programs in a lot of communities. So those are really great questions. Because that would be so helpful to directors, wouldn't it? Instead of having to have you check that and track that by yourself.
Okay.
And I think your experience with BRC Navigator has been really kind of changed the expectations around user interface and access to the information. It's certainly still in development and still needs further work, but I think if you've been using that system, you'll see some of what the functionality will be in our new registry system.
I think that this question's again,
Performance reviews, right?
access to information is this.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, unless there are other, oh, there we go. Investigations, suitability findings, I think that might be.
It's a really good question.
Okay, we'll move to the next question just for time, but if you think of something that you weren't able to ask, please throw it into chat so we make sure we've recorded that.
This is an important one. If you could help us know what are the most helpful ways to receive information about changes as they roll out. I know everybody's got an email box that's bursting, and is that the most useful information or way to convey the information, or how is it helpful for you to receive information about all these changes? Email.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. A banner and lead. Great. Those have been really helpful, I think. Yeah, I agree. Text alerts. That's a great idea. Right. The recorded webinars, little videos,
Great.
emails.
I think email might be helpful, Kelly.
Yeah.
This is good to know. Sometimes it feels like overdoing it on email, but it sounds like it's actually welcome.
Yeah.
Not Facebook. Oh no. We'll make sure that Facebook is not ever the primary source of information.
Although it does help. I saw that the PDCs posted information about our town halls, and so I was appreciative of that. So maybe as a secondary source, not a primary source. Videos.
Yeah. What are these sort of video thoughts?
And I think the video kind of clips have been a good resource when we rolled out LEAD. It's already been, I don't know, 3 years since we made everything live in LEAD, which seems like a lifetime ago. But I think those were really helpful. And I think with Navigator, the same thing. If you can point people to kind of digestible bits of how to access the system, you're all getting to be very tech savvy. So, but that does really help.
Please feel free to continue to weigh in over chat, but we'll just go to our last question for now.
Are there concerns or excitement you wish to share related to what you've heard tonight, this afternoon, in this presentation? Anything that you wish we covered that we didn't?
Is there anything that you think there's just so much potential in the professional registry if it's thinking about this piece or that piece? Or what are some of the things that kind of hooked your attention or that you're excited about hearing more about? Or things that you're really worried about and want to make sure that EEC has addressed in a certain way? Let's look at responses. Okay.
Awesome. Centralization. We've been hearing that forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nervous if I qualify a person incorrectly. We're here to support you. That's why I'm saying, please reach out to your licensor, to Sarah, to me, and we're absolutely trying to give you as much technical assistance and support as possible. We trust you. Every day you're making decisions about your program operation, and you're making good, informed decisions. So
A time when all educators need early ed degrees, is that the end goal?
it's a really good question. I think that's a great question. Love it. Modernizing EEC. Yay. Really good question. What if I've already submitted an application to TQ? They're going to keep processing those and work on the backlog. Caitlin, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, I think Kelly referenced this earlier on in the town hall and did so really eloquently. We are not going to discredit or devalue TQ certificates that have already been administered. And so the process moving forward, once announced, will be to continue the review and validation of those certificate requests, and then simultaneously working with programs towards a future state of being able to manage that centrally at their program. So I do believe that the TQ unit is very excited to provide support and technical assistance. Once the policy is released, Eli and her team are going to be working with our team to support some office hours so that we can provide more technical assistance to the field with regards to very specific questions. I noted one person asked about out-of-country experience or coursework. We know that there are very complicated content areas within the credentialing or qualifications piece. And so we're really committed to working with programs through those office hours to resolve those questions. And then I think, as Kelly referenced, long-term vision state, we really want to get your feedback so that we can design a professional registry that meets both our needs and your needs. You said TQ will still work on these. What if I qualify someone with this new policy that I already submitted to TQ?
So what if there's a discrepancy? If a program reads a set of credentials or experience one way, and then TQ comes back and says they're not qualified?
Yeah, so I think, we will take these questions back and provide some thoughtful answers. I think there will be discrepancies, not because of how TQ is providing support, but because the operational framework is shifting. So the TQ team will not be approving or validating the credential, the program will. The TQ unit will be providing technical assistance. And so the framework that the team is currently using to approve and validate credentials and qualifications will not be the same framework that is used when programs are reviewing and approving credentials and qualifications. So I think that's a very important distinction. And I think Kelly has been working really closely with her team to think about, during scheduled monitoring visits, how can we support programs with understanding this shift and utilizing the TQ team for technical assistance, not for validation or pre-approval of hire.
Great.
These are all really excellent questions, and it provides us an opportunity to circle back on the policy and the operational documents we've developed to make sure that we are proactively addressing these questions in the resources that we make available publicly. So thank you for that.
Looks like we've slowed down a fair amount. I will leave the question up so that folks can continue to respond, but Kelly, I'll turn back to you to close out the session.
Oh, great. Well, this was really a lot of thoughtful questions, a lot of thoughtful responses, and I really appreciate your time here and all of the insight you provided to us. So we look forward to continuing to work with you and supporting you through these changes. I think these changes are important and in direct response to what we've been hearing from the field as some of the pain points. And I appreciate Caitlin's leadership as a new deputy commissioner and Diana's leadership in helping us kind of think through how can we not just do things the way we've always been doing them, but think about new ways to approach this work. So Diana, do you want to say anything in closing, or I didn't let you talk at all this time?
On mute,
Oh.
sorry. Yeah, no, thank you everyone for joining us. I know your days are really extremely busy and providing your input with the questions that were asked. We're here to support you, as Kelly has stated, and work with you through this. So thank you once again, and it was great to see you all. Thank you, Kelly.
Okay. I'll close the meeting now. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.